This is Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the Successful, Interesting, and Awesome podcast where I interview people who are, wait for it, successful, interesting, and awesome. Or at least one of those three. Hey everybody, it's Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the podcast. It's called Successful, Interesting, and Awesome, and I love recording it, and I'm going to tell you the secret behind the podcast. This thing was born out of COVID. And I didn't really know how it was going to go. And I got to say, it's been surprising and delightful. The response has been great. So I didn't really expect that. And I was willing to let it go pretty much unlistened to, a hidden gem. But the comments have been great. And I thank you for the emails and the calls. And, I've got hired out of this. So who knew? But really, the thing that makes it worth it for me is it gives me an excuse to call people I totally admire, people I totally want to know better, and I get to pepper them with questions. And if you think about it, in real life, we don't get to do that. We meet some people, and then even though we want to know a bunch about them, we got to do a conversation, which is a give and take. But with a podcast, it's an interview. And I get to spend a lot of time saying, yeah, but what did you mean about that? What did you mean by that? Well, this guest, Karen Eddington, is a total rock star. I've been sort of orbiting around her. I've known her for some time because she's a very funny, very talented, very successful motivational speaker. She's awesome, but I haven't known her as well as I wanted to. And every now and then she'll send me an email or I'll see some marketing piece that she does or something. And I think, dang it, this woman has just got it. But after the interview, I realized, yeah, I was wrong. She doesn't just have it. She is it. She is the bomb. So really fun for me to get to know Karen Eddington better. And I know you're going to enjoy meeting her as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. KarenEddington.com is her website. Let's do this. Everybody, it's Brad Montgomery. I've missed you. Have you been washing your hands? I hope you have. Because dang it, it's coming back. Doesn't it feel like it's coming back? Here's where we are on this moment before I bring out this amazing guest. I've been on the road again. And that has felt really good. And I gotta say, it feels precious for two reasons. One, I miss audiences and being in front of you. Oh, that's so much fun. And wearing leather shoes and clean shirts. It's such a treat. But being able to connect one-on-one with an audience who's in the room with me has been really special. And because of coming out of COVID, I think it's times 5. But right now, I'm starting to get some calls from my clients who have booked future events, future in-person events, and it's going like this. Brad, we're going to postpone. Brad, we're going to go cancel. We're going to cancel. Maybe we might go virtual. I don't know. And so it feels a little bit, I hope I'm wrong, like March 2020. It feels a little bit like that. But it's different because we already know how Zoom works, don't we? And those of us in my job and our guest job had to figure out how cameras worked, and I had to go buy a bunch of junk. And so even though I'm worried about what's coming forward, I'm also hopeful because it's not going to be quite as surprising, is it? Now, for having said that, wash your hands, go get a shot. It's FDA approved no matter how you look at it. Go for it. Not just for you. But for your community. All right, now, am I excited? Because I like my podcast. I like every guest, but occasionally I get to interview a guest that I'm super pumped about, and this woman is one of those people. She has a really cool career. So she is a professional speaker, but if I have it right, her path through professional speaking has not been super linear. It was different from mine in all of the best ways, and she has a totally unique take on what she does, and she has a very unique voice. And in this business, that's hard. It's a big deal when you find somebody who you feel like, this woman has got the goods. And so we're going to bring her up, but definitely, here's a teaser. She's going to tell us about something during the marriage class where when I asked her about it, she said, I don't know if I can tell that. I'm curious too, so we're going to hear about that. And then definitely, we're going to hear about shoes. She and her daughter are doing something mind-blowing and fascinating and something you're going to go, with shoes of all things. So we're going to hear about that. But please welcome to the stage a nationally known rock star professional speaker. We've got Karen Eddington. Karen, what's up, girl?
Hey, Brad. Oh, and I agree. Live audiences are precious. It's great to
D-
see people back.
doesn't it feel to you when you're in front of a group now that it's like, oh, I think I took you for granted before?
Oh, I did. I just sat there and I basked in it. I had one last week. Rather, it was local and small group, but I basked in that energy and I loved it. And even though there's still more uncertainty coming, like I feel like I'm facing this round with more hope, I think, than March 2020. But there is still some uncertainty we're all working through still.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel a little fear because right,
You're
you're
not alone.
our jobs were just starting to cook. The phone was starting to ring. And right now it's ringing, but with
Hesitancy.
yeah, but it does make those audiences a little bit more precious for sure. All right, so has that changed when you're in front of an audience? Do you feel like you're a different speaker past COVID than pre-COVID?
Right now, I do. And it might have just paused and skipped. Sorry if it skipped, but I do feel like a different speaker. I feel like I care maybe even more than I did before. I feel like that the time we have together is so precious. So I want to utilize it. And I love screens. I love that we have the opportunity to connect wherever people are right now. So we don't feel alone, even when we're home by ourselves. But even through the screen, like I love connecting right now, but this little camera right here, woo, it can hurt your eyes and make you tired. And so just having that live audience makes you, I just have such deep gratitude for it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in some ways it feels selfish, right? Because it's like, oh, we as speakers are so grateful to be in front of an audience. But I sense in what you're saying something that I've been feeling, which is more than ever, I feel like I'm here in service to the audience. Which, when I heard those phrases as a young speaker, I just made me want to gag. Like, whatever, I'm basically an entertainer or whatever I am. But now I just feel like, oh no, I've got something that you need, and I'm going to give it to you, and it's going to be great for all of us. Does that feel like you?
Yeah, that feels exactly right. I feel like just in the past 5 years, I've solidified some of my work in the Under Pressure project, and I was teaching it all wrong. I think one of my biggest breakthroughs with past couple of years is I used to say, let's prevent a breaking point. And now I'm like, whoa, I've been teaching that all wrong because I think we actually need to help each other to pass through the breaking point. Like we go through the hard things and stop trying so hard to prevent like melting down or things not going right. Rather, like we ride the wave. And I do feel that. I do feel like, wow, I truly have something that I can share with others that might be helpful about pressure and about how we see ourselves and about like laughing and enjoying our lives, even when things all around us feel like they are falling apart sometimes. Yeah.
I feel well. It is sort of funny because we as speakers are often charged to tell audience, oh, the glass is half full, or you can deal well with stress, or find the funny even when it's difficult. That's been put to the test, right? Lately, right? I mean, can we do it personally, and then are we completely frauds if we get up there on stage and say, well, actually, I kind of struggled. Last March I was not Mr. Happy Happy.
Well, this makes me think of like this authenticity conversation too. Like sometimes we need to share like real things, and just being a little more real helps us to connect with people. Like it makes us more human. Yet, like we share, I think we're supposed to share in line with what our relationships can bear too, which is really interesting because if you have an audience, you have to share in line with what is right for that audience and situations, but yet being truthful that like it's hard to be positive, but here are the things that are getting me through. So that's helpful.
All right, well, we're already off my outline, but I love this. So,
We're just
because
chatting.
I want to, we're gonna get to you because I do want to hear more about how you got there and under pressure, and I want to hear about the shoes. But how much do you tell your audience about how crappy your life is? Let me
I
explain.
actually get pretty real. And in fact, it starts in my introduction. I speak to a lot of women's audiences. And one time I decided, I thought, I'm going to get real with people. And I wrote, instead of like my accolades, I wrote, she once went 4 months without mopping the kitchen floor. And I put that right smack in my introduction.
Mm,
And I remember at the end of the event, the very first time that I did it, I had this very respected woman come up to me, and she just like caressed my shoulder, and she said, "Oh, sweetie, you don't need to say that out loud." And I just thought, "Whoa, maybe we do. Maybe we do need to be saying more real things out loud because it makes it safe. I think it makes it safe for us to be human." And so, even starting with my introductions, I love putting like real pieces in there. Like sometimes I'm just a mom trying not to step on a Lego, just real things that I think help connect us. I think if they just see that, I'm just like you, like I'm struggling to get through the day. Like I had my entire family of 5 come home and share space during COVID, just like you. And we're blurring those lines of like,
right.
of, of personal and professional life. And I think the more I get real with that and share in line with what our relationship can bear, I think we can heal and make connections. And they say like, if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, I'm starting to step that up more because I've always been I've considered myself to be pretty open on stage, but like there's a very specific example lately that I was worried about, and I feel like it makes me closer with the audience. And let me tell you what it is.
Ooh, what
At,
is it?
at one point, I'm talking about one of my kids, and it's my son, and I love my son a lot. But also, he and I are like this a lot, and sometimes lately he's made life look really hard. He seems to be picking the hard ways, and he's not necessarily calling his dad for a lot of advice. And that's been really hard. Our relationship as he ages is strained a little bit. But I love that kid. And I more or less tell them that before I tell them the story. And I kind of thought, this is not motivational speakers we're thought to be supposed to have our crap together, right? And here I am admitting I'm not happy with the relationship I have with my middle kid right now. And I think for a lot of people that just brought them in. That so it was a weakness, right?
Well, I think also that that perfect isolates us. Like so many times when we want to say like family life is perfect, everything's great, and like we smile when we're not okay. Sometimes that makes us even feel more isolated out. So if we find someone else that's, like struggling with a family situation or struggling here, I love how it can connect us even more because human connects us. And I think it's really important to make it safe to be human, which has become a big part of my work. With the Under Pressure Project, that's I find myself talking about that more and more, finding ways to talk about like our failures and our effort and not the end results and the outcomes.
All right. Well, since you mentioned it twice, not that I was counting, what the heck's the Under Pressure Project?
So that's basically how I group all of my work under. And it's really interesting because it's something that initially failed. I started speaking right out of college. So in 2003, I did a thesis on how we see ourselves and feel about ourselves. And I did this self worth outreach center after that. But here's the thing, it ended up turning into a business and it failed. And for the longest time, I did not want anything to do with those programs I ran while I did that. So in 2008, while some of these things went wrong, I launched something called the Under Pressure Project, where we surveyed and both like interviewed open ended questions, asking people the biggest pressures they have and their top solutions for getting through. And what's really interesting, it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago that I had this epiphany that I need to be talking about my failure moments. Again, like making it safe to be human. Like I had flaws, fears, failure, effort. I didn't want to talk about that for the longest time, but I've been able now to pull that into the work I do today and not run from all of those things that went wrong because I've learned so much from all of those moments that were less than ideal, like when we were struggling to get through and I closed a business, but I learned so much in the middle of all of that.
What was the time lag between closing the business and feeling bad until you thought like, okay, I've learned something here. I'm okay. I've got a new outlook.
That is such a good question. My husband puts it this way because my dad asked, like, "How's Karen doing after she closed the business?" And he's like, "Well, it's like there's been a death in the family." That was his that was his answer. And even my mailman, like the first day I started that business, my mailman handed me my mail and he just said, "Good luck." Like he was just
Oh.
anticipating, ready for me to fail. And so to answer your question, I think initially for the first 2 years, I just felt so embarrassed that I tried all of this work. Like I was doing this outreach work and I couldn't believe it didn't work out.
Mm.
And so it probably took 5 years. 5 years, and I'm like, wait a second. This was not a failure. Like my mess turned into like my message. And I need to be talking about this. I need to be talking about what I learned. Don't you feel like you have moments like that in your career too, though? Have you ever experienced moments where things have gone wrong and you go, whoa, maybe I can use that? Have you felt that too?
No, Karen, my life has been perfect, and shame on you for even implying that I might have. Yeah, I had this very small failure, but it came with a good story. I built an iPhone app, and remember at the very beginning of iPhones, the apps that were available were stupid. And we all like, oh, how cool! And there was a very, very, very popular and financially successful app called iFart. Basically, you could push and make a fart noise come out of your mouth or your
My kid
phone.
would love that.
Yeah, and now when you look at all the sophisticated things that are out there for free, it was pretty stupid. But I thought, oh, I got it. We're gonna make an I Laugh app, and you can play different laughters. And I had ideas. You could delay it, and you could put your phone over there and hear your child laughing or whatever. And by the time I got it, because I didn't know anything about it, by the time I got it out, the marketplace was already a little too crowded, and now, of course, it's crazy crowded. So it was a financial total dud. But when I took it to my mastermind group, this guy I really admire named Jay Arthur, I said, like, all right, I got it out. I don't think it's going to work because of the timing, and I'm doing my best, but I think it's going to fail, even though I think the app is kind of cool. And there was like 4 people in the room, Karen, and he stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And he just said, bravo, you took a chance. You tried something. That's what it is. And I think that meant a lot to me. That was a much less personal failure than yours is. But I think, if someone is just there to say, like, well done, Karen, you failed, what are you going to try next?
See, I love that. I was even trying to teach my family that the other night. We were sitting down at the dinner table, and one of my kids was like, I want to get 4.0, all good grades this year. And I thought, no, chill out a little. I want you to know that it's okay to fail. And I think that's something I've learned. Like I learned it the hard way, but I love that you got applauded for doing this app and it might not have worked out, but I wish so much more we would celebrate our effort. Because if that was the case, we would be so much less afraid to do things that, that really can make a difference. And it takes time. Like, do you feel like you learned things out of that? Did you get stuff out of that? I got stuff out of my failures.
I mean, definitely I've got stuff out of failures, and some of them have been like massive failures on stage, or I just completely messed up with a client, maybe by accident. But with hindsight, I'm like, I should have known. I shouldn't have done that. And it's hard not to learn from those, because those, with a business like ours, it feels personal, right? It's super
Oh,
personal.
it does. Yeah. I put everything I've got onto this stage. Yeah. I remember an event even, well, I guess it was a year and a half ago, but I remember it going wrong. But if I'm humble enough to learn from it, like the part that went wrong is they told me it was a women's event and that you kind of needed to cater to everyone in the room, but it was all people over 70. And there was a couple people that were 20, and I had to like go into like generational stuff and go, okay, they want this. My 20-year-old and the meeting planner want this. And I gave them what the room wanted, but they were disappointed in it. But see, how can I learn from that? Like I learned how to maybe structure my intros better, maybe to front load it, include the stories. But like when that went wrong, it helps me be a better speaker for my next event as well.
Yeah, I hear you. You just dropped a hint of something that I think most of our muggles, like most people, when they
Muggles.
meet us and have no idea what our job is, they would be astounded that Karen Eddington could serve the audience and make the clients happy and still make her client, the person who paid her, unhappy. Right?
Yeah,
That is a mammoth complicated thing.
it is because there's two people you kind of have to look for and take care of. I mean, it's always taking care of people. I mean, we're in the people business.
One of my favorite gigs ever was when I didn't have to care about the audience. And let me explain it.
Oh,
Super dysfunctional team on a military base. And the major in charge who brought me in was a command of a bunch of civilians, and they were super disengaged and angry and didn't do their work and didn't care about anything. And so she brought me in, and we talked about what my message was going to be, which is it's more fun to care than not. It's more fun to do your work correctly than just try to hide and wait for your retirement in 12 years. And it was this beautiful thing, Karen, where I just got to let it out and tell the audience what I genuinely thought, not having to care at all what they thought, which of course I wasn't super popular with most of them because they were like, who told you to tell
depressor.
us this? But the major thought I was a badass. It was super fun. But mostly that doesn't happen. Mostly we have to you have to please both of them.
Right, right.
Well,
Well, good.
speaking of failures, I asked you before we started recording about an anecdote, and you said, "Oh, there was a marriage class. I'm not sure if I can tell it." So what? Well, yeah, please. What are you talking about?
Okay, I'm scared to share this publicly, but um, there was a time I was in a marriage conference and I was teaching alongside my husband. So my husband's a marriage and family therapist, and so this is my embarrassing speaker story. We were talking about healthy relationships. They had themed the whole conference after like this jungle animal theme, and I don't know why they did that. For parenting, it was called Raising the Monkeys. That was our class title. I didn't pick it, but that's what it was. And they had to choose between the other one was before us was Unleashing the Inner Tiger, and that was one about like marriage and love and that health. Okay, so in this class, here I am. I'm teaching. It was my turn to be on stage, and we were talking about healthy relationships. We brought people on stage to create like letters of what a healthy relationship looked like. So, for example, an A, like they lean on each other, and if one person comes, they fall. There's a K. There's an H. H is what the healthy relationship is supposed to look like. But I had a couple get on stage and do the letter K. I thought I was going to die because it was a little bit, well, it wasn't PG.
Oh,
So,
I can picture it. So one
so
person was
anyway,
vertical. I'm guessing that was the dude.
yeah, yeah. Oops. See, this is why I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I just remember looking at this thinking, like, how do I recover from this? And I just thought, like, y'all are in the wrong class because they should have been in Unleashing the Inner Tiger. But I don't know. I don't know if I've ever been so embarrassed on stage as when I put someone in a compromising position. So I don't know if I
Oh
should
wait,
tell this story, but I just told that story.
did you put him in that compromising position, or did they had to be a K
They
and they
did
chose
it.
it?
But I told them a healthy relationship looked like a K, and they're like, "Here we go." And I was like,
What did was the audience busting up?
"Yeah, everyone." And this is like a really kind of conservative community, and everyone was just kind of like, "What do we do?" And so they laughed. So
Well, okay, so how long ago was that?
that was probably a good 9 years ago.
Right. What would happen differently if that happened today? I'm
I think
guessing
I
it'd be
would
all
roll
different,
with it more. Yeah, I think I would be less embarrassed. I would change. I knew exactly what to do. I would change their position so it wasn't quite so compromising
right?
and roll with it just a little better. Throw in a couple more punchlines. Do you ever write punchlines after the fact or just like, oh, I should have said this?
Yeah, most of
Should
them.
have said more about unleashing your tiger. Anyway,
Yeah, but what I think that speaks to is maturity too, right? Because when we're starting this job, we have a plan for what we're doing on stage, and if it goes off script, we're nervous that it doesn't go well, and we don't think at our best. But now I can just picture that happen, and you're like, yeah, you have no idea how much worse stuff has happened since then. I can fix this.
well, that's what it is. Experience leads to confidence too. Do you have stories like that? Do you have stories you like rewrite later or have embarrassing moments on stage that you've had to kind of sit through and think through later?
Yeah, like every show. Yeah, but yeah, like some major doozies though. Like I've got my start in magic, so I used to always bring people up on stage, and now I'm starting to do that again. But there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you bring people up on stage. You can put them in a horrible position. So, for example, if you have an introvert, you're really on thin ice with them. And the audience sees them being uncomfortable and everything. But there was a time once where I got up. I'll never do this again. I got up a person with an invisible disability. So he had a major back issue and a brace, but this was not evident when he was sitting. And Karen, had convinced myself at that time of my career, if I ask you to help me on stage, I have to get you up on stage, or else the audience will see me let somebody get away with it. And once I lose one, I'll lose them all. So
Mm-hmm.
I, had a lot of techniques and jokes and ways to get the person up on stage, and it worked, but it was such a disaster. And this person was really uncomfortable, and the audience was uncomfortable, and then I got uncomfortable, and all of that telegraphed through to the audience. So now, if you ever hear me go out to the audience, it almost always you will hear me say something I learned from a buddy who's a comic and has MS. And the question is there any physical reason that would prevent you from helping me on stage?
Oh, that's good.
And the audience doesn't hear it, but
Do you ever?
occasionally people go like, "Yeah, you can't see my cast," or "I have MS," or "Yeah, I can't go up." So for them, they hear a back door, but the audience doesn't hear it. God, thank you, Brett Leak. That was from Brett.
Good. It's good. Do you ever ask in advance, or is that too much work?
No,
Do you
I don't
like staying
ask
in
in
the moment?
advance, because if I ask them in advance, I know you get people up on stage. I feel like they get weird. If I say, Karen, in 10 minutes, I'm going to come over here and ask you to come up on stage. Would you come up? Oh, you will? Okay, good. Then Karen spends 10 minutes or whatever time flipping out and getting weird. And then by the time she gets on stage, she's a weirdo. What's your take on that?
You are right. I think I'm learning from you as we're talking right now. Because I've had a couple events. Well, I'll do some improv, and I've learned that I don't like pulling people on in advance. So I've asked people, and I've had one event where I had to completely scrap it because no one would admit to wanting to do this and get on stage with me. I couldn't get that audience to participate. So, but I guess it's better to learn before the event than in the middle of it. So, or maybe
Yeah,
I would get
because you were kind of
on.
out there without a net, weren't you? When you ask, if, who wants to help, and then no one's coming, there's no way to save that.
Yeah, and moving on. So,
Well, but so what? Walk me through that. So let's say you get people who are physically able up on stage. What would be the worst case scenario if they got up there and they were a little hesitant?
let them go peacefully. I think you always do everything you can to make that person like the superstar, make them the hero, make them comfortable and feel good. I think that's why I like to ask in advance. And it takes a lot of groundwork. I usually have my note cards, I'm walking around. I know if I'm doing some of this interactive work that I want their name written down in advance. Another thing I've done before too are audience lists. So instead of pulling them on stage, I pull their ideas on stage. One of the ones I've done a lot is that, like, you're tired, like, especially if we're talking about burnout and being tired, I create a list. Like, I'll just go pull the audience of the craziest things they've done when they are tired. And so I can use their material on stage without pulling them on stage. And I've gotten some of my favorite ones from just asking people them. My favorite is, you're tired when you wake up in the middle of the night to change the baby's diaper. Only in the morning you discover the baby was wearing two diapers. Isn't that awesome? That came from one of my audiences. Another
But
one they talked about ordering Amazon packages at 2 a.m. And it was fun because right in that moment I could write more material for them because they were ordering skeins of yarn. Yeah, I mean, look at how much fun you could play with that. Like, some people count sheep. Other ones, I can't remember, play with wool. I don't know. Like, I just had some fun just playing with what the audience was going through.
I'm imagining. By the way, that sounds brilliant. I wish I thought of it. And when I talk to my clients, they're going to think I did.
You
I'm
do your
teasing.
thing with it. That's fine.
But that's so. Are you setting that up way ahead of time with like a online email poll or something?
No, I do it. I love connecting, and this is what I've missed about virtual. Virtual, I can do it by email, but I am usually work in the room. Like I'm there early. I work, especially if there's a check-in or a registration area. I hang out there. If there's a meal, I don't sit and eat the meal. I'm at every table. I'm talking to people. I'm connecting with people. I'm getting stories to use on stage. So it's
Oh,
fun,
yeah. You're one of those
and that stuff
speakers.
fuels me.
You're one of those speakers that makes me feel bad about myself because I don't do that.
Well, you shouldn't. And that's the thing with style. Like every speaker has a style. I remember just watching someone admiring them, how they like made an entrance. They didn't connect with anyone in advance. I'm like, how cool would that be to just walk on stage and then boom, you're there. And you get this respect immediately instead of like hustle for it behind the scenes at everyone's table. So
Yeah,
I
but I
think it's
can.
easy to compare ourselves, but
I totally see
you
the
do you.
value of. Well, I was over at that table talking to Lisa and Joe, and Lisa said the coolest thing that I think ties in. Wow, I think that's super powerful.
One of my favorite moments was a woman who shared, like, I can't remember, she gave me a song, and we got the whole entire audience to sing You Are My Sunshine because it came from that table in advance. So, yeah, it was nuts. I can't believe that happened. But you're right. I guess there are perks and benefits to connecting with your audience in advance. But if you do it differently, like, kudos to you. Know that I admire that too. And it's great.
Well, I have never given up that meal.
Don't have you ever burped on stage?
Mm.
That's one of my biggest fears in life is eating before before speaking and like being like, hold on, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, but when's the last time that you had a loud, crazy, completely surprising burp that just came out and you had no warning?
I don't know. I don't know how we went here, but it was my fault. I said it out loud. So.
Well, I will confess to this. You and I typically wear a microphone pack. On where do you wear yours? Because women have a different problem because you're often in a dress.
Yes,
Oh,
up top, under my hair.
oh, so that gives you a problem that I don't have because I can get to my. I put my hand kind of on the small of my back and I can feel it. If you do that, everyone thinks you're weird. I
Yeah.
this is a problem that men don't have because what I will I have a headset like this, but I can turn that off and I use it all the time. So I just one hand goes here and then I can talk to you and say, for example, is there any physical reason that will prevent you from helping on stage? And it's off. Or if I need to burp, I know that's coming and I can take care of that. But I don't know how you do that.
Now I know the real reason why I don't eat meals before I speak. I can't click my mic off. I do like handheld mics too. I think that's probably why I like a handheld mic is more control. Didn't know this before. This is good.
Okay, well, this brings up a topic that I did want to ask you about. Let's talk about being a woman speaker. Are you willing? Because there's a couple things I want to ask you about. Um,
Fire
when was
away.
Me Too? Me Too was like 2 or 3 years ago, and I remember when that happened. I I'm not proud of this, but I started thinking about stuff more than I had in the past. Stuff I should have thought about in the past. And one of the things I thought of is, oh, this is definitely happening within our speakers association and within the speaker industry. And I hadn't thought of it, but I'm positive it has. And then I've heard some tidbits from other speaker buddies who are women who said, like, of course, you idiot. What do you think? What things do you have to deal with as a woman in this industry that me as a white, straight, middle-aged guy do not have to deal with?
And see, I could go off on lots of tangents here, but a lot of times mine would be safety and travel. I often worry about getting in somewhere late at night and taking that Uber in. One of my other speaker female friends, she's telling me, like, take a picture of the license plate, text it to someone, and you'll be safe and you'll be okay. But yeah, there are certainly things that everyone has to deal with. And I love that we can kind of learn through it. We can learn how to better honor each other, better see each other, better listen to each other. But there are certainly things that we've had to deal with, that I've
Well,
had to deal with. Yeah.
that safety thing, I'm not proud of it, but I hadn't thought about that because yeah. So you're worried that the Uber driver is going to be Jack the Ripper?
Who knows? Yeah. So recently, even when we traveled, when the NSA convention in Las Vegas, my flight was delayed. I didn't get in until 2 a.m. So here I am, 2 a.m., the Las Vegas airport. The cab line was super long, just getting in, finding my way. Yeah, that was an adventure. That was an adventure. But I always feel pretty safe. I think I listen to my heart pretty good, pay attention if an environment feels safe, and change directions if it doesn't.
Well, plus to be fair, come on, 2 a.m. in Vegas is like noon in other cities.
I know everyone was awake. They were. I thought, like, is this 8 p.m.? Everyone's just hanging out. Like it's nothing. Like I fall asleep at 9 p.m. I don't know what they were all doing awake. So,
I remember a cab driver. I was talking about this very same issue because I was talking about putting my kids in a cab. This was pre-Uber, and he said, "Oh, totally." Because I said, Isn't it awkward if my daughter comes to the front of your cab and takes a picture of your license and a picture of your face? Isn't that awkward?" And he says, "No, because I'm not a bad guy. It would be awkward if I'm a bad guy, and then you'd be really glad you did it. But I know what you're doing, and I think it's a great idea." And I, I still think it might be hard though if I was a woman to go like, "Excuse me, I need to walk in front of your vehicle."
you do it sneaky. You take a picture quietly and sneakily. So,
Right, but he was saying if you do it openly,
yeah,
it's even better because then you're just saying like, "I'm just protecting myself. You understand? I haven't met you yet." But I'm
yeah.
not sure if I could do it.
So this could lead us into all kinds of like ninja safety skills as well. So
What about being on stage as a woman? How is that different? So, for example, I have a really good friend, Leanne Tiemann, who keeps in a spreadsheet what she wears because she'll say like, "I could wear a dress in front of this audience and not wear that dress for 3 years, but if I wear it again in front of that audience, I will get people coming up saying, 'What? You only got one dress?'" Whereas I can wear the same black suit and no one even thinks about it.
yeah, I think about those things too all the time. I don't keep a spreadsheet, which is a great idea. I like that idea. I got a good tip. That's great. But yeah, there are things like that.
Do you have to like prove yourself in ways that dudes don't?
I think it's a little bit different where I work with a lot of women-based audiences and also youth and education market-based audiences. The more I get into corporate audiences, which is kind of interesting, I don't do a lot of those. I'm hoping to do more. But the more I get into that, there's a little bit more of a system and a hierarchy. And also there are some really tough audiences that I think we've all dealt with too. But if it's an all-male audience, that's tough. It really is a tough situation, but I also believe in myself. I think that's also a key for me as an individual woman speaker is to know who I am, know what I have to offer. And frankly, I don't like dwelling on it or thinking about it. I like moving forward in peace and confidence, honoring people, honoring my other fellow women speakers who need more support, supporting other speakers, both men and women. I think sometimes it's hard for all of us. And I just love a sense of unity and support as much as we can possibly put out there for everybody, making sure people feel listened to when they need listened to as well.
Yeah. What about the business? Have has being a woman impacted that?
Um, I don't know how to answer that.
Honestly, would be good.
Partly, well, I think part of it is I have a family. That is where I'm going with this is I have a family. I have 3 young kids and I choose to be there for them. So I speak less. I think sometimes because I'm very family oriented, there is less opportunity for me as well.
Yeah, that's that glass ceiling we read about, and currently we're reading about it with just the concept of because kids are home, women are out of the workforce, and it's completely unfair. I hear you. Well, I've got a few women buddies, and I assume you're one of them. I know there are support groups, informal support groups, with just women speaker buddies who are not inviting men into those support groups because they're like, "You don't need a group. You're a white, straight, middle-aged dude. We're we're, we're working this thing," and I kind of feel good about that.
Brad, if you were in there, you'll be just talking about Spanx. So you're good.
What a coincidence! I've got them on right now.
Oh, good. Well, hey, can I take a turn with this?
Please.
So Um, Talking about being a family oriented speaker, one of the interesting things about this past year is like home life and family life has been more integrated than ever. And do you want to hear my shoe story right now? Should I talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because we had to get there, so this is a good time.
Okay, good.
I need to know more about it.
So in March 2020, when so many of our speaker friends, like I watched everyone like start scrambling and create these in-home studios, and I realized my entire family came home. I know, hi, and granted, I got a place, but I share this office with my entire family, and there are no doors. Like right here, that's my front door. I'm looking at it right now. So if like Amazon rang the doorbell, everything's ruined.
Are you like in an entryway or where are you?
So, oh, you want? Okay, so here we go. Let's
Oh,
see.
yes, please.
Right here is that's my kitchen right there, and that over here is the front. But here I am, like,
That's so clever.
yeah, it works, kind of, but it's really loud when everyone's home. So when everyone was converting to these virtual studios, here I am with my family of five that had all come home from school. I'm homeschooling them. When I see other speakers converting to virtual, I was making Pokemon guys on Shrinky Dink film trying to entertain my kids. Okay. So I kept feeling like everything was a failure. Like I just kept thinking all is lost.
Mm.
And just like there's no hope for the future of what's next. But what I realized is my family has become part of my story. So in the fall, my daughter created a pair of shoes. So she got a white pair of shoes and she painted them. And her first trimester in school, she had a teacher that taught her entrepreneurship. And because of this teacher, my daughter came home and decided she was going to start selling shoes. It took her 2 weeks to talk me into her business plan, but she named it Brave and Creative. And she started putting courage quotes with every single shoe that she sent out. So this kind of turned into like our family business. So through the pandemic, oh yeah, you got a picture. So
There's
this
a
is what we've been doing.
So
Yeah.
if you're listening to this, they look Converse almost ish, but they're
Yeah.
super cleverly painted.
Yeah. So she customized every single one, sent a courage quote out with them, but it ended up getting picked up by Fox News. It got picked up in Empowered Teacher magazine, 50,000 copies. My daughter took a picture. She was in her unicorn footy pajamas, and they took a picture of that. And there's now 50,000 copies of her in her unicorn pajamas. So, but,
Wait, how
but
old
I
is
think
this daughter?
she's in seventh grade. And
So
we've now sent shoes all over the country.
wow, that's 13. What? How old is a seventh grader?
Yeah, she's 13. 13. She was 12 when it all started. But there's a couple of favorite moments that happened through this. And like I said, like I thought everything was lost. I thought because I'm a woman speaker and I'm very family oriented that I thought I would never get a chance to jump back out in my career again. And here I am with my family. I didn't realize my family was going to be part of my story. That really like jumping in, supporting my daughter, supporting that teacher. A couple of my favorite moments that happened is we got an email from someone that said, my friend has cancer. Her daughter has cancer. I'm
Mm.
paying for you to make some shoes for her. And so she created them. And it helped give my daughter Evelyn hope and courage through some really hard times herself, but she sent those off. And I just remember getting an email a couple weeks later from her mom that just sent a picture. And when I opened it, I saw this beautiful girl and she had no hair. And there she was wearing a pair of shoes
Oh,
that a seventh grader had made for her. And I think when we go through hard things like that, we forget that like we can make a difference with just our little things, the things that we love, these tiny things like shoes. And another favorite moment at the end of the year, we got to go surprise her teacher with an award. Like she didn't know we were coming, and there were over 200 nominations for teachers to get an award, and they were able to choose Mrs. Heiniger, and we snuck in the middle of class and we were able to present her with an award that included $500 for this teacher. So even if you have simple ideas, I think don't disregard them, because sometimes those little things that we do really, they matter to someone somewhere, and they can turn into big things.
Well, there's so many parts. I have so many questions. So, what's the most important thing to your daughter? The business part of it, that she is this young kid selling things, or is it that she's giving a little love to people like this cancer victim? What drives your kid?
Surprisingly, it's just being creative. Like she's part Hermione Granger and part Bob Ross. And so being able, she named it brave and creative because creativity can make you brave. And frankly, she has no idea she's made such a difference. I don't think she has any
I love
idea to
that.
the depth that it's mattered to people.
Right?
All she does is she sits and she paints and she creates. But I think it goes for each of us as well. Like, I don't know if you've had moments of flow in your career or in life where you're creating and it helps take your mind off of this stressful thing, and it can bring you hope and it can bring you courage. And so to her, that's like the most important part, like just sitting down after a hard day, wearing a mask, not being able to see your teacher's face, not even knowing what they look like, and coming home and getting out the paints and creating something.
Oh, so how how big is this thing? You said she
um
sent
and
shoes
just
around the country.
Oh yeah, hundreds. We even got messages from China. Yes.
Wow.
So cool. So she's kind of getting a little bit burned out. I've called myself the official post office chauffeur. I spent a lot of time in the car. So, but she has since stopped painting shoes and now has a tutorial. So if anyone wants to get the tutorial, you can find it at theunderpressureproject.com. We put it in there. But also she's working on like a little book project. And that I haven't told anyone that. You're the first person to hear it. But she's working on putting her story in a book.
There's so many things I love about that. I wonder if part of the reason she did such a crazy, daring, creative, brave thing is because her mom is a risk taker. Kind of.
Well, and she's seen me fail. To circle back to the beginning, she was like, she's grown up her whole life, not just seeing me take risks and like go for things, but she has seen me fail and come out the other side. So, like, when I talk about pressure in general, like, it's both a risk issue and a capacity issue. And so, if
Uh,
we can get rid of some of that risk, like knowing that it's okay to fail, do you know what that does for us? It makes us fearless. It makes us be like, okay, I can do this.
I'm inspired. Well, do you feel like fear of failure, is something that we age into? Meaning, when I was 12, I might have been as brave as your daughter. But then, as I had more to lose and was more aware of peer pressure and what people thought of me, that maybe that tolerance would have dropped. I'm not sure. Do you think that's in play here?
Yeah, see, I'm going to go take a turn in my research. We've learned that, see, I'm getting my
Oh,
formal voice out.
nice. Good, good,
But if
good.
you, I'm just going to say, when you go in a room full of kindergartners and you ask for somebody to participate, I mean, what happens? The whole room, everyone shoots their hands up. They want to be involved, they want to participate. We start developing this fear in about fourth and fifth grade. And it is at its peak in middle school where we start looking around. And yes, we grow into it, but we can also grow out of it some. I think sometimes in your 30s and 40s, maybe it can trickle out just a little bit more. I research people on identity, and I've heard that over and over. About age 40 to 50, people start to say, like, I don't care what other people think. Like, I don't care what they think anymore. Like, I'm living my truth and doing my thing. So that's kind of some of the things I've seen in my work. Do you think it's similar? Do you see that?
Yeah, well, it's like it seems like if you ask a bunch of little kids who's good at kickball, everybody says they're good at kickball.
Yeah, I love that.
But if we had a big room of like if there was a party right over there and we said who's good at kickball, most people would say, "Oh, don't pick me."
Right. Right. Because we have that fear. We don't want to fail. We don't want to put ourselves out there.
So here's what I have done with my awesome children. When they come up with something really cool, I try to milk the crap out of that for my business. and I so if I were you, I would be talking about these shoes endlessly in front of my audiences. I think you are. Are you?
It's true. Thanks for the pitch lead in there. If you would like to book a keynote speech on brave and creative leadership or entrepreneurship, I got your back.
KarenEddington.com.
Yep, KarenEddington.com.
Well, I've seen her. This woman's fantastic. Book her, and you get the whole shoe story. Uh,
Brad?
I my I was like you. My kids were home because of COVID, and they hear me all the time yammering to the camera. And I was telling this story about my daughter. Oh, because it was a client who called me because my daughter has diabetes. She has type 1 diabetes. So I'm telling all these diabetes stories, and I'm having to go talk to my daughter and say, remind me how that went. How did it end? I can't remember. And then I said, Claire, does it bother you that I'm using your life experience to make money? Because she's out of college, she's has an opinion. And she said, not if it bothers you that I'm using your money to create my life experiences. Genius child. I wish
Love it.
I'm putting that joke on stage for sure.
Good.
Well,
I love it.
we do have a cool job, isn't it true that if something happens in our life that's cool, and that could be a disaster, or it could be something funny, or it could be a huge win, suddenly we got a new story, right? That goes on stage.
I love it. And I love the little stories too. I keep a notebook. I've started doing this the past couple of years where I've tried to write simple stories every day. And even like the past couple days, yesterday I went for a walk on a trail by our house. There was simply like a mom with a daughter with Down syndrome, like arm in arm, and they were greeting people walking the trail. And I just thought, that's a simple story, like what it takes, that humanness. I feel like we need so much more of that human connection in our lives right now because the news is just horrible. It's horrible everywhere you look. And so sometimes our simple human everyday stories like give us that hope.
Well, yeah, hallelujah. You caught me thinking as I was listening to you. I was thinking, why do people hire you? And it's more of a complex question than you think. Because I think when we start our job, we think we're doing one job, but then we kind of grow into it and we realize, oh, my audience is like me for different reasons than I thought. Or the clients who pay for me to be in front of those audiences like me for a totally different reason, like we hinted at the beginning. When people hire you and you are the right speaker in front of the right audience, why are they hiring you? Do you
Because
Can you find a question in
this
there somehow?
this is tough to answer, but I feel like my entire life's purpose, I've written it down before, is I need to tell people they matter. And I see you do that in your work too. But like, if someone were to hire me, it's that feeling that I'm leaving you knowing that you're significant, that you matter. And like the technical things, they probably bring me in for energy, interaction, and some content as well. But it's the feeling that I'm here to tell you that I see you, I hear you, you matter, and you can fail and you can go do big, great things. But that's a really good question. I'm probably going to ponder it more and write more down about this as well, because that's
No,
a good
don't.
question.
I would say don't change a thing. I'd book you
Really?
on that what you just said.
All good. That's good. I'm still going to write more stuff down about it though, because I like it.
I feel like it's a weird thing. Our industry, I feel like, especially you and I are both friends because of the National Speakers Association, and my gut feeling is that the NSA is really focused on business speakers. What are the 12 takeaways you're going to bring? How are you going to help me scale, or how can I help you as a speaker scale up your business so it's sellable when you were done? And these are not things that you were talking about. You're talking about going in there with a very heart based message and feeling based message. What would you say as somebody who's been very, very successful with that people skills kind of approach to someone who says, oh no, Karen, to be a successful businesswoman in the speaking industry, you're going to have to be, 12 steps to leadership or whatever. What's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, and I get that. I see that, and I do have content. I think that I can give them to check the box. But I think really when you pull people in a room, like one of the main things I'm noticing is connection is so important. Like a keynote speech, one of those things that's different about a keynote is it unites the entire conference. It provides us with an experience. And I think people want to have experiences, especially after having such a tough couple of years. I think we want to feel connected and we want to have experiences together. And that's why those skills matter. And yes, I can give you those business 12 steps of whatever you need to understand your pressure. But at the same time, like we need those uplifting feelings to feel encouraged, to feel like we can do this, to feel like we can keep going when it's hard.
Yeah. What I would say to somebody who said that's what it takes to be a successful speaker is I would say you should see Karen Eddington. She's killing it. And that's not what she does. That's not what people love about her. She makes them feel
Brad,
like failure is not so scary.
can I write that down? Karen Eddington makes them feel it's good. Failure's not so scary. Good. Sometimes you got to say it out loud with a speaker friend to be like, that is what I do.
I know. I'm 55 years old. I still feel like I'm just learning what my topic is. Like, if you would have asked me
Don't you
5 years
feel like it's a
ago,
process?
say that again.
I want you to finish. You said that. Don't you feel like it's a process? If you would have asked me 5 years ago, was what you started to say.
Oh, yeah. I would have told you what my topic was and I would have meant it. But now, 5 years later, I'm like, oh, no, no. I got it more solid now. So, yeah, totally a process.
I like thinking of my career as like drops in a bucket. I feel like it's not just like one big break. Some people look for like one or two big moments or like I can finally define who I am as a speaker, but there's always a what next. And we're always learning new things along the way. So I like just filling a bucket. And sometimes we pour in like more amounts that fill it up. And sometimes it's just a couple of drips, but we're always growing and filling. And I like thinking of it that way. It takes the pressure off.
That is similar. It's kind of similar to the baby steps metaphor.
See the baby steps metaphor. Is this
Well,
what
just
about Bob?
I don't know about Bob. What I was saying about the baby steps, like it's too overwhelming to say I want to be successful, but it's not overwhelming to say I'm going to take a little tiny step towards being successful. And then given enough time, you've gone across the room or across the state or whatever. And so that's what made me think when you're talking about putting drops in a bucket, they
Baby
can be very
steps.
substantial. You just got to be patient.
Good. I was referencing the movie What About Bob? If you've seen that one where the therapist becomes the patient. If you haven't watched it, it's a good one.
Okay, I got to
Bill
watch.
Murray, baby steps into the elevator. Someone out there will know what I'm talking about.
Okay, I sense that that was a hilarious connection. I just said
Okay. Just okay, that's what she's talking about.
this is the story of my life, and that I feel like in front of my audiences now that I'm 55, a lot of my references are dated, and then other people have really lovely references, and I'm like, what? I'm old. I don't get it. So it
No,
just makes
it's
me feel
okay.
old. All right, well, here's we're getting close to the question that I warned you is going to happen. But you are a lovely person, and I remember when we met at NSA, or I don't remember the instant we met, but you took it upon
I
yourself, Karen, and you like were the most friendly, persistent, lovely, kind person, and it was irresistible to not want to be your friend. What's your memory?
so actually, okay. So when my business failed, when I was in the peak of failure, that's when I met you. And you really had a major impact on my life. And I don't think you knew it. So about 9, 10 years ago, we went down to another convention, Las Vegas Laugh Lab, but you were teaching savor lines. And I remember sitting in there having this massive failure, feeling that way, feeling like a failure, and you taught savor lines, which was basically like you let people know you're okay on stage, that you belong on stage. When you said those words, they spoke to me, and I just went, "Oh, Brad, that meant the world to me." So, you being on stage, sometimes I think we have people that influence our lives, and they can be mentors in our lives, and they don't even know it. So, you have been like a powerful influence on my career because I've seen how you're kind and you're good to people. But it was in that moment sitting in the back of a room listening to you teach savor lines that I realized, whoa, this guy's cool. So
Oh,
that was my first moment. But that's why I probably was following you around like a puppy dog. I'm like, hi, Brad. Hi, remember me? You told me I could do it, that I belong on stage. And look, I belong on on stage.
You have told me that story. It's very generous of you, and thank you. It feels nice. Within the context of what we talked about today, I just made a connection. Savor lines, the concept is, if you, like us, are in front of an audience, you are definitely going to say something that is not funny when you meant it to be funny. And so here's a technique to get out of that problem. And I think another way to phrase that would be to say, you are going to fail. Plan ahead, because it's just going to happen. And maybe that's part of what appealed to you, is just that concept of course we're going to fail.
Right. But also, I remember I wrote it down in one of my notebooks somewhere that you belong on stage. Like, show them you belong on stage because of how confident you are. Like, if you can own your failures and own your bad jokes. Like, I took improv right after that. And that's one of the things I learned, that like your bad jokes can even be funny if you are the one that's owning it. That if you can just be like, it's my confidence, it's how I rock it on stage. But I learned that from you, and I'll be forever grateful.
Well, I'm grateful for our friendship, but it is very touching. I guess it's a metaphor. You just don't know when anyone's listening, right? You don't know when someone's having a crappy day and they need you to say something that you don't think is that important. Oh,
Right. Oh, that's good. That's a good moment.
Well, this is a tough business, Karen, and you've been in it a long time, which says it all. Really, it honestly says it all. If you've been in this business as long as you have, that means you're a rock star. And I've seen you on stage, and I've seen video of you, and everybody listening or watching right now should do the same. Type her into Google, Karen Eddington, and you'll find out what I know. She is a total pro with a unique voice. She's just got something. It's a pleasure being buddies with you.
Thanks, Brett. Your check is in the mail. That was so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, I like to end this podcast with the same question for every guest. And we are at that point now. So here we are. Karen Eddington, mom, leader, professional speaker, comedian, improv artist, rock star. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? I think it's fueling my brain with human moments. I think right now, if we turn on the news and we fuel our brain with like all the horrible things and the uncertainty and the disappointment and the sadness, that's not hopeful, and it's heavy. It's those simple, tiny daily moments, those stories that I write about every day, the simple human stories, like looking at my child in his eyes when he gets home from school. It's seeing that girl with Down syndrome with her mom, like greeting people as they're walking. It's those simple human moments that tell me that life's worth living, that we're going to get through this. We're going to ride the wave, and we're going to come out, we're going to pass through that breaking point, and we're going to come out on the other side. And so making it safe to be human, that gives me hope.
Aw. Yeah, you know what? I think right now what you said just makes a ton of sense, because right now in the history of our country and the history of our planet, it's terrifying and it's complicated and we're fighting and it doesn't feel good. And so concentrating on those simple human moments as you described them, that would give me hope. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, well, it makes all those big loud things less. Sometimes it's those simple tiny things. Yeah.
All right, simple moments. Well, everybody, gosh, I'm glad you spent some time with us. If you're interested in Karen Eddington, you ought to be, check her out. If you're looking for a speaker, check her out. KarenEddington.com. There's 2 D's in there somewhere. You'll find them. Or if you're willing to settle, I'm a speaker too.
All right. Great. I am Brad.
And would you do me a favor? If you were listening at this point, you made it all the way through. Congratulations. You could be helpful to me. I'm so flattered you're here. If you would hit like and subscribe, if you go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe and write a comment, those are small. Talk about a simple human moment. Boy, those really help. So you know how social media works. It really helps us more than you might think. So share and let's grow this audience. Karen Eddington, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. I really appreciate connecting with you today.
It was a simple human moment. Dun da da. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is coming full circle. Take care, everybody. Wash your hands.